All right, welcome to the CTE's AI Reflection podcast brought to you by the Center for Teaching Excellence at SMU. In this series, we showcase both how faculty are experiencing with artificial intelligence in their teaching and research at SMU. Each episode features a professor sharing their experience. What was the need for the use of their AI tool? Why did they choose to work with AI? How rewarding was the experience? Were the results useful? What challenges did they face? Our goal is to spark ideas, share resources, and encourage innovation in teaching and research so that more faculty can be more creative, productive, and enrich teaching and learning and research at SMU. So let's get to it. Please introduce yourself, your department, and the course where you have used AI.
Hello, my name is Melissa Cheshire. I'm the Dean of Honors and Scholars. I'm also a faculty member in journalism, and I created a chatbot for a course called Editing Across Platforms. Um, yeah.
Good. What prompted you to use AI for this activity?
I would say many things prompted me. So, in the journalism division, we had recently reimagined and rehauled our curriculum, and we were shifting from a one credit kind of grammar, punctuation style class to a 3 credit editing across platforms course. And I began my career in academia teaching editing 2 decades ago. And I hadn't taught editing in a long time and knew that AI was transforming the craft of editing within the profession of journalism. And one of the challenges I had faced early in my career with an editing course was having professional content that was flawed, that students couldn't find on the internet themselves. So I didn't want to have to write a story, and I knew that there was value in giving students the chance to edit work that reflected something that was interesting to them. And I also knew that students were using AI for everything. And in an editing course in particular, I cannot imagine why a student wouldn't take the piece of writing and put it in AI. And I didn't want them to do that. I wanted to give them weekly repetitions of editing a flawed piece of journalism. And I wanted to create an experience that we could talk about and share within the confines of a class.
Great. How did you decide which AI tool to use and how did the process go to create the tool? And tell us more about the tool.
Yes. So I began collaborating with a colleague at my former institution in February of 2026, knowing that I would have to teach this brand new class in the fall of 2026. So um, he has computer skills and I have editing skills. And we had worked together as co-teachers before a lot. And we were excited about creating a customized bot. So I spent a lot of time creating a very long list of all the things that I look at when I'm evaluating a piece of journalism. And I wanted to make sure that there were a certain number of AP, Associated Press rules that had been broken, a number of flawed sources, um, flawed transitions, like a like boring opener. And so we embedded all of those problems so that every student would get a flawed piece with a certain amount of flaws. Um, so what I think is helpful about that story is that if you think about a university, we all have expertise in disciplines And for those of us who are interested in AI, but who are not computer programmers, we should build a community of partnerships and collaboration opportunities because some of us possess the passion and the curiosity, but not necessarily the skills. So luckily, I had this colleague who is willing to work with me for years now on this project.
That's awesome. And describe to me what the tool does and how the students use it, and what is the pedagogical purpose.
So the pedagogical purpose is to develop in students kind of their editing muscle by providing a weekly chance for them to edit this flawed piece of writing, which mirrors any editor on the universe. We all get content that is flawed in large and small ways. And so students go to this chatbot. They can, they are given agency about the type of story it is. Is it a feature? Is it a profile? Is it service journalism? And they also get to decide the subject matter. So um, one of the problems that I had previously when I taught editing is that I relied on the content that I and the writers that I had worked with as an editor, and those were oftentimes not the areas of interest for every student in the class. So the agency that is provided by the bot is that if you're interested in sports, for example, have written one sports story in my whole career. So, and I don't have anyway. So students can decide what content. So there is built into it this inherent interest and engagement. Hopefully, it's scaffolded across an entire semester. It starts out really small. They have 500 word stories for 3 weeks, then 700 word stories, then 1,000, and then 1,200. Each story each week only counts for a couple of points to 30 points that are a part of a small portion of their 100 points in the class. So um, hopefully repetition builds skill and expertise.
Wonderful. Let us look at the tool together and kind of go through it. So give me just a second.
Great.
Here we go. This is the tool. So I'm going to click Get Started, and let's see what happens. Okay, do you have a story topic in mind, or would you like one generated at random? So this
So
is where the student would do what?
they could put in, I want a sports story, I want a fashion story, I want a food story, I want stories about movies, about immigration issues, like whatever their interest is, they can tell the bot to create a story based on that.
Okay. What if we talk about a food story, something like how have cooking shows on TV actually influenced cooking in homes across America? Something like that. Okay, let's see what happens.
Press the button. Okay, and so then you get a chance to create your word length. Maybe this is kind of the second, maybe this is week 5 or 6 in the class, so maybe you press 700 words or say 700 words.
Let's see what happens.
So then you have to pick a story type. I will say your story sounds like a trend story, uh, but you could also pick a feature that's more a long narrative type story. You also could pick a profile, and that is a story that is told and centered around one particular person. Or there's also service stories, and those are basically guides or kind of a what you need to know about this issue or trend. So maybe yes, you picked a
So which one?
trend. Right. And every student has to pick a sidebar. So you would say yes or conceptualize a sidebar. So the chatbot spits out a flawed story, and students then are asked to copy that, put it in a Word document, and they have to write a new headline and a new deck. They have to edit the story both for large and small editing problems. They have to provide a short summary of what they think, because sometimes the bot spits out a story that's pretty good, and sometimes they're absolutely horrible. And you want to have the student to feel confident in their skills to say, you know, based on the flawed sources, the horrible structure, that this story should be killed or not published. But so the bot also reminds students of all the things that it's looking for and that they need to provide. And then the student would do spend an hour in class doing all that work, including pitching a sidebar. And a sidebar would be auxiliary, kind of extra information that is in a very like 1, 2, 3 list kind of format that provides another entry point to the story, but could not be included because of space or because it might mess up the narrative. So for this story, for example, you might have a sidebar on three, food TV food celebrities to follow online, or it could be the top 3 food shows or the top 3 cookbooks spawned by TV shows or whatever, something like that, but really short. And then really critically, the students also have to provide an additional real human source, because all the sources in the story are completely fictitious. Students still have to judge whether or not that person and that title would be logical or helpful or reliable, but they also have to find a real human being. And then they would take all the information they created, put it back into the the chat, and the the bot would immediately give them feedback on all that they've done and give them a grade. And they get from the bot an A, B, C, D. I don't think anyone ever made an F of the 504 projects or assignments from this past year. And then I, as the professor, um, they can share the link to their work to me. And then every week I would look at what the bot provided and then what they edited, what the bot said about their work, and then I would give them my professor feedback and grade. So, so, and again, these were really low stakes grades. So in the beginning, 2 points max. And when they're doing longer stories, the 1,000 word or 1,200 word stories, 3 points. And that was just a small portion of their entire grade.
That's
So
so cool. So if I were to edit this title, what would I do here? What cooking shows really put on America's dinner tables? On America's dinner tables. This sounds pretty good to me. Would I want to change this to something more exciting?
yes, you 100% would want to change it, because a lot of times editors ask writers to, but you would need to copy it and paste it and put it in a Word document if you were going to put it back. So you might, so it might be what cooking shows tell us about America's dining table or
Eh,
like kitchen table, maybe.
Should this have a deck in here? Or this should
Um,
not be there.
well, the bot has provided a headline and a deck, but I ask students to write a new headline and a new
Yeah.
deck.
Okay.
And sometimes they just the same. Um,
Anyway, how the chopped show.
oh, that's
Um,
good because you know what? You're being specific.
yes, how the chopped
How
show
chopped, how chopped, how chopped changed uh
has helped
Amer
you.
America's kitchen table or but that sounds more like a headline.
Yes, you're right.
But
Anyway, let's leave it like that. Let's see what happens. So if I copy them this, let's say that I don't like this, I'll just delete this just to see what the thing says.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
so
cut out a bunch. Yeah. And then
copy that, and now we go back here. We're gonna paste the new work that I've done, which should have the new. Oh, it's got some interesting things here. Okay, and then we click submit. So let's see what the bot does. Where would we see the critiques or the
okay, scroll down.
okay, we've got a bunch of stuff on this one.
So it gives you critique on all the main areas, and sadly you made a D because
No,
you didn't
professor.
provide wait, you didn't provide a sidebar. You didn't provide an additional source. You didn't anyway, so students were always they couldn't wait to hear what the bot said, and they were always I meant uh typically like frustrated. Well, not, I wouldn't say typically, but many times frustrated. But rare was the D, I have to say, because students worked really hard. And so then they would copy the link. If you go up to the top, you can copy the link, and then they would share the chat. They would copy that, and then they would send that to me. And we interviewed a large portion of the students that took the class, and we're also spent the time over the summer evaluating how the feedback the bot gave versus the feedback the professor gave. And students, I think overwhelmingly based on the interviews and the surveys, enjoyed the experience and um, uh, yeah, so I think I, just like everything in editing and in life, there are improvements to be made and things that we will change and do differently. And but I think the lesson of this work is that in any field, there are ways to use AI to give students repetition in things that um, would help develop judgment and critical thinking. Um, so, yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have any data how your students reacted, formal or informal, to the activity?
Yes, we do have data. Other than the broad brushstrokes, um, I, Adam hasn't sent that to me yet. So I'm happy to share that with you. But he did say, as he was working on it this summer, that overwhelmingly students enjoyed the experience. Um, yeah.
Okay, very good. Um, Is there anything you would change if you were to make any changes to your app, maybe for next semester or some other changes?
Yes. I think the thing that I would like to do less so about changing the app and
Mhm.
more so about the assignments is even though I love the agency given to students each week, I think that maybe one story per cycle. So the 500 word, the 700 word, I think the last story in each cycle, we should, as a group, in the class decide what kind of story so that everybody gets the same story and we devote time to talk about it because students really wanted to talk about how great or how awful their story was and share headlines that they wrote and what the bot said about their work. And so I think having one exercise per cycle that everyone gets the same thing and we talk about it would 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 be a useful change.
Yeah, that's really cool. If you were to give one piece of advice to one of your colleagues trying to use AI in their classroom teaching or research for the first time, what would that be?
Find a thought partner.
Mhm.
I think this work is done better outside of a silo. So, in addition to the fact that I had my colleague help me develop it, I also had a colleague in the spring who was willing to try it in her section of editing and her students, and she had also great feedback. And it was just great not to just be working in my own head and my own frame of reference. So um, I think it just, I think as we look at how quickly these changes are coming, um, I think we are living in a world that values and prioritizes collaboration. And I think finding ways for us to work together, and including people who are very skeptical or resistant, and having them also provide feedback. So that would be my and use AI to develop um, ways to give students repetition on things that they need to work on.
Could you have done something like this without the use of AI?
Absolutely no, no way to give every student a story they're inherently interested in with a prescribed amount of mistakes and flaws in an organized manner that develops the same critical thinking. No way. It's not.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you, Melissa, so much for for the discussion of your project with the SMU Center for Teaching Excellence and for taking part in the CTE AI Teaching and Research Studio and its Reflection podcast. To explore more faculty projects and practical examples of AI uses in university teaching, learning, and research, visit our online repository of AI teaching activities at ai-studio.smu.edu. If you'd like to learn more about using AI in your own courses, teaching and research, connect with us at the Center for Teaching Excellence by emailing us at cte@smu.edu. Keep browsing our teaching with AI projects and listen to more conversations with innovative SMU faculty as we continue to reflect, experiment, and imagine the future of teaching and researching alongside AI. And that is a wrap. Thank you.
Thank you.